The world's biggest serial killer is probably never caught if he knows how to use a computer. Imagine that a person is serial killing someone who is a friend of his own victim, a well-known name in the city, and a doctor. This is the amazing story of Dr. Harold Shipman, who used his clinic not to save his life, but to kill himself. In a small town called Hyde in England, where only 30,000 people live, for 23 years, he was serial killing under everyone's nose. Even after putting more than 250 people to sleep, no one doubted Dr. Harold Shipman, and probably never would have if he hadn't made a small mistake. What was the reason for killing people? Why wasn't he caught for so long? And what clue did the police get, which exposed the years-old murderous act in a single moment? Viewers, Dr. Harold Shipman used to run his clinic in a small town called Hyde, near Manchester, England. The total population here was about 30,000, and 3,000 of them were Dr. Shipman's patients. Doctors mostly targeted patients who lived alone and were very old, and no one could even suspect their death. Dr. Shipman would give as much time as possible to those patients, even by going to their homes. He would listen to them to lighten the burden on their hearts and make them feel that even though they were alone, Dr. Shipman was there to listen to everything they said. Some patients even trusted Dr. Shipman so much that they even gave him the keys to their homes. Because of this attitude of his, he had become quite famous in Hyde, because people thought that Dr. Shipman only treated old people through words. But in the midst of all this, Dr. Shipman would get all their details out in words. Who is alone at what time? Who has how much wealth and property? Who comes to the house? And where do the relatives live? When Dr. Shipman was satisfied, he would overdose the medicine on his patients and kill them. Now, because those patients were already over 80 years old, no one could even suspect their death. This went on for many years, and no one even suspected them, until he himself made a mistake. Dr. Shipman started his career 70 kilometers away from Hyde, in a town called Pontefract, where he worked in a hospital. Then in 1974, he left Pontefract and went to Todmorden, where he became a general practitioner at the Abraham and Merritt Medical Center. Here, during his job, he was caught prescribing a large amount of a drug called pethidine to some patients, which he had to use himself. Pethidine is actually a painkiller, but it is a very addictive medicine. Dr. Shipman was addicted to pethidine, and he would deliberately prescribe this medicine to his patients. He would give a little to them, while he himself used a large amount, while the patients did not even need this little medicine. This would make the patients feel very good after taking this medicine, when in reality they did not know that they were taking drugs. This was the reason why the Shipman's patients were attracted to him, even though they did not want to. After being caught, the hospital administration removed Dr. Shipman, and the matter reached the point of his license being cancelled. But Shipman gave a fine of £600 and got himself admitted to a rehabilitation center, which saved him from his license being cancelled. After spending a little time in the rehab center, when everyone forgot him, he came to Hyde in 1977, where he became a general practitioner at the Donnybrook Medical Center. In the 1980s, he kept practicing on the position of GP, and in the meantime, he did not quit drugs, nor did he find a chance to kill old patients. But the frequency of these murders increased significantly from 1993, when he opened his own clinic in Hyde and made a good name for himself in the city. For the next few years, the matter went on like this, and no one doubted the doctor's action. First time in March 1998, Dr. Linda Reynolds, who worked in another hospital opposite the Shipman Clinic, Brooke Surgery, expressed concern about the high mortality rate among Shipman's patients. She said that Shipman, who runs only a small clinic, has lost 16 patients in the last 3 months, while during this period, Brooke Surgery, which has 3 times more patients than the Shipman Clinic, has only lost 14 patients. This doubt only increased when it was found that after the death of Dr. Shipman's 16 patients, they were not buried, but burned. Let me tell you here that most Christians bury their loved ones after death. Only a few people decide to burn them. Dr. Linda expressed her suspicion in a report with the coroner of Manchester, in which it was also written with all these details that most of these 16 patients of Drive Shipman were old women who were found dead in their homes. And it cannot be a coincidence that at the time of the death of most of these patients, Dr. Shipman was alone in their home. Dr. Linda said that most of the deaths caused by diseases in the house are on the bed, but the death of Dr. Shipman's patients was strange, sitting on a chair in well-dressed clothes. And secondly, at that time either Dr. Shipman was at his house or he went to the same house for the first time and found the patient dead, which cannot be normal in any way. An investigation was also carried out on the basis of this report, but the police did not find any solid evidence against Dr. Shipman, and after a month, this investigation was stopped. When Dr. Harold Shipman's patients died, he himself signed the Form B. Form B is the form that the doctor who treats the patient has to sign, in which he writes the cause of the patient's death. But the problem was that Form C, which the other doctor has to sign, was also in most cases signed by Dr. Shipman's friends or those people who did not doubt him. In this way, Shipman wrote fake information in the death certificates of his patients and sent them for cremation easily, and no one had any doubt. Due to this process, many deaths remained uninvestigated, and this was the reason that Shipman was able to hide his murder easily. After the investigation was closed, Shipman put 3 more people to death, but the time to be caught was not far. Shipman's last victim was Hyde's former mayor, 81-year-old Kathleen Grundy, who died in her home on June 24, 1998. And here too, Dr. Shipman was the last person who saw Kathleen alive for the last time. She later signed the death certificate and wrote the cause of death as old age. Kathleen's daughter, Angela Woodruff, was a lawyer herself, who doubted her mother's insistence on death when she got a will from her mother in which she had written the name of her home to Dr. Shipman. Dr. Shipman was very close to that family, and finding a home in the will did not become the basis of doubt. In fact, Angela doubted the fact that her mother had 2 homes, whereas the will mentions only 1 home. This makes it clear that this will was written by someone who had no knowledge of another home, and that was Dr. Shipman. Angela Woodruff went to the police, who resumed the investigation. Kathleen Grundy's body was dug up and sent for autopsy. It was found that there were many traces of diamorphine in her body. When the police asked Dr. Shipman, he said that Grundy was a heroin addict, and he had written this on his computer before treating her. Dr. Shipman had recently started making entries in a computerized medical journal, but he did not know that he had entered the date of death in that entry, but the last edit date of that file is automatically saved in the computer. When the police checked the entries in that computer, they found out that Shipman had made this entry after Kathleen's death. This alone was not enough to arrest Shipman, but the police also found the typewriter that was used to write a false will. It was found that there were some characters that were missing in Grundy's will. On September 7, 1998, the police arrested Hyde's well-known doctor, Harold Shipman. When this was revealed, those people also came forward whose loved ones Shipman had killed earlier. They had doubts, but they could not raise their voices in front of the city's well-known doctor. The police also investigated 15 other patients who had died at the hands of Shipman. A special pattern was seen in all these cases, in which the patient was given a lethal dose of diamorphine. He himself signed their death certificate and wrote old age in the cause of death. Shipman himself also advised cremation, so that all evidence is erased after burning. During the Shipman inquiry, all the cases of the patients who had died in Shipman's care were reviewed again. The inquiry team investigated all those documents, death certificates, and medical records that Shipman had handled. In addition to this, those people's families were also interviewed whose relatives were Shipman's patients, and some bodies were taken out and their forensic postmortem was also done. This process was very detailed, and during this time it was found that Shipman killed a total of 218 patients. This is a confirmed number, but due to a lack of evidence in many cases, it was not confirmed. It is assumed that this number can be up to 260. The court sentenced Shipman to 15 deaths. That is, he will not come out of jail, but in 2004, he tied a bed sheet to his cell wires and hanged himself. After his death, a colleague in his jail found out that Shipman had actually killed 508 people, not 218 or 260. And Shipman himself told him this. But the real reason for Shipman's so many murders has not been revealed to date. Some people call it a psycho, some say it's a way to make money, and some people also understand the effect of Shipman's mother's death, because his mother, who was a cancer patient, was given morphine as a painkiller. Experts believe that perhaps Shipman also wanted to see his patients dying by giving morphine in the same way. I hope you will like and share this video.